Councillors, thank you for coming back together. So Councillor Clarkson was keen to be on board for that annual plan decision. And I believe he's scheduled to do that at 3:30. A component of this discussion is reference to our next agenda item, which is the Muggeridge's, what's the official title of this? Muggeridge's pump station debt repayment. I'm going to suggest that we cover off that item. I believe that there's been some new information that's come through since our briefings on this item. So Dave, Democracy Dave, is there anything formally that we need to do in order to move to this conversation and then come back?
We can just leave this item to lay on the table. If the council so desires, we can formally do that by way of resolution, but otherwise there's no harm in just moving on to the other item and coming back, and I'll note that we've done that in the minutes.
Are we comfortable with that less formal process?
I'm okay with the less formal, as long as the 3 councillors not here have the opportunity to participate at 3:30. Could someone send them a note? Thank you.
Yes. All right. Director Ryan.
Kia tātou. Yes, good afternoon, councillors. So here to present the paper around the Muggeridge's pump station project and the debt repayment. So the paper has been provided, so I won't go into it in a huge amount of detail, other than just to reference that this is a project that was underway previously with council. The previous council decided or made the decision to close the project following a funding shortfall that could not be overcome through funding from other areas, and the community was unwilling to provide any further funding in that regard. What this has meant is that the progress that was made on that particular project, particularly around community engagement, resource consenting, design, and also partial construction, which involved some earthworks for canal, expenditure has been incurred, totaling $1.8 million. And so that amount is now sitting in the Piako operational reserve. And today's decision is looking at the options to repay that debt over a period of 10 years. I would note that there was an additional $500,000 in expenditure in regards to pumps, but those have been excluded from this conversation because we are able to repurpose those pumps for other projects. 3 options that are before you. The first one is that the debt be repaid over a 10-year period using the Piako River Scheme rate, the standard rate, which is generally it's 85% scheme, 15% general rate funding, although you'll note that an adjustment has been made to acknowledge a 5% contribution from the Hauraki District Council. I would acknowledge that that contribution, as is covered in the report, is still going through and subject to a council process from Hauraki District Council, and that staff would recommend that should that contribution not be available, that that 5% be placed on that same Piako River Scheme rate. The other 2 options, one is the bespoke Muggeridge's funding policy that has been developed through a consultation process when the project came about. And this is a bespoke funding policy that has a direct beneficiary contribution, scheme contribution, and also contribution from the wider Waiho Piako zone to acknowledge the benefit across the wider community. And the third option is a slightly reduced or variation to that, which is a lower contribution from the direct beneficiaries with a higher contribution from the others. So, Madam Chair, as I said, so this funding is sitting there. It is in the annual planning information that has been presented today. The question for council and the decision for council is around how that particular element of our budget is dealt with across our different funding areas and rating schemes.
All right, just in relation to that funding, Janine, did you want to make any comment regarding some of the options that were discussed earlier today?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I guess one of the first options that has been put forward by staff is to consider in relation to the general rate component of the debt that is actually addressed by the application of prior year surplus funds. So that would mean that we don't need to continue to rate for that over the 10-year period. It would also have the benefit of a small reduction in the overall cost of that debt, which would benefit the targeted ratepayers. I think, and Greg, whether you want to talk through the other options, but I guess understanding, separating out matters and considerations around the canal from other aspects of the capital works, noting that there's still a future conversation that's required with Hauraki District around what the drainage scheme works need to look like and whether there is actually any residual value from that asset. So being able to deconstruct is probably not a good word in this context, but understand the different component parts of the costs that we're facing. What are the bits that it makes sense for council to be addressing now? And what are the parts that there is a subsequent conversation that is needed with other project partners?
Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before we come to how we deal with the finances, there's two issues that I brought up in the workshops. And one revolves around how we got to this position. And I understand from information given at the workshops that council staff were led to believe from the appropriate government department that some funding that was being handed out through COVID was likely to be available, and further costs were incurred. So this comes back to me as to what the processes are, what assurances, and I'm directing this at the chief executive at the moment as our only employee, but whether it's he or the director that it responds. So what has been learnt from this, and I cite the Tauhei scheme again that incurred millions without any oversight and funding processes in place, and this Muggeridge pump, that essentially, will this happen again, and if so, what can be done or what has been done to mitigate that? And so the learnings, the assurances, can we have that stated in the public forum?
I will look towards Director Ryan to make comment, but notwithstanding that there's been discussion of this in workshops in the last couple of days around perhaps the project management frameworks that are put around some of these projects, the learnings about the desires of some of the community, and how much weight is given to that without considering the wider community potential impact of it. Greg, do you want to reiterate some of those comments that were made in the last couple of days?
Yeah, and one thing I would, just a point of clarification as well, that when the project got to the point where a competitive process was undertaken and it was clear that there wasn't sufficient funding available, no further money was spent on the project. There was some additional work to try and secure that funding through the government, but in the interim period, whilst there was that approval in principle, no further expenditure was incurred against this project until until ultimately it was confirmed that that funding wasn't available. So just to clarify that point there.
So the reality, though, through you, Madam Chair, is that we've had two instances now where in nearly 2 million and previously several million, from my recollection, without trying to recall the exact amount, with Tauhei. What assurances can the community have that this sort of situation won't evolve again, where a good idea is run with without any funding base, and therefore we're in a position to be asked to either put it on a scheme, a wider scheme than just the beneficiaries of that scheme, or in fact the wider regional community to pay for, whether it was, I won't try and label it as a mistake or an oversight or an incorrect actions, but we've got to get some assurance that processes are now in place to prevent this type of incident happening again. So that's what I'm seeking, sir.
Yeah, so reference was made to our project management framework, and I think the key learning with this is that we do get approached from time to time by communities who are looking to either establish new assets or improve the level of service that they receive. I think a key learning from both this and the Tauhei project was being very clear about what the process is to actually investigate that further in order to, I guess, make progress on that inquiry. And part of that has been very clear as well, is that council will need to establish appropriate funding and budgets to undertake the initial investigation, with, again, a clear understanding that that is simply to get to the point of go or no go. And there is a potential for a no-go call to be made, and that needs to be understood in terms of recovering that money that may well be sunk without the establishment of asset. I mean, that's what we've seen with both the Tauhei and the Muggeridge situation. So there's a very clear understanding there, and part of that is application of our program and project management framework, and staff being very clear around what they are enabled to undertake, what funding has been enabled and released by council versus what needs further decisions before moving forward.
Maybe somebody can just assist me in terms of decision making. Is this something that should be picked up by the risk committee to set some policy on the levels of funding which can be internally authorised before a need to come back to full council for approval to move forward?
Through you, Madam Chair. Risk and audit does have a purview of significant projects, and Janine, I'm just looking to you to remind me where the integrated catchment sort of suite of projects sit within it, because I know there's a lot of project governance wrapped around that now.
Yes, thank you, Chris, through you, Madam Chair. The Risk and Assurance Committee over the last calendar year had under its oversight the overall shovel ready program, of which Muggeridge was included within that. So there is that governance oversight and transparency. From an authorisation to spend perspective, that's set through our financial delegations policy, and in relation to these large items, so we have an internal what we call a tenders board, which is members of the executive leadership team looking at expenditure that exceeds our individual delegations, and where that expenditure is now more than $2 million of council's funding and over multiple financial years, that comes through the Finance and Services Committee for oversight and approval. Those approvals, sorry, in terms of the spend, I think there's also the issue obviously around the establishment of the budgets and associated funding.
Yes, thank you. The $2 million, I respect that in terms of senior management team, senior leadership team decisions, but I would like to think that we could have lower than that. Investigations into projects should not proceed. We can discuss that.
Councillor Dunbar-Smith.
Oh, simply to express concern that these people are going to be paying constituents 1.8 million for something that hasn't been delivered from a canal. Can you talk to us about the canal process at all, and whether there's any possibility of future project happening there?
Yeah, sure. So the canal is in place, and options have been worked through with the Hauraki District Council about what options may be available to resolve the issue, because the issue still remains for the Muggeridge's area, the Muggeridge's catchment. And so it needs to be looked at in terms of, are we talking about solutions similar to what were explored? Are there other ways to resolve the particular issue? Every effort is being made to incorporate the existing infrastructure into those solutions. The canal is just one existing piece of infrastructure. The Muggeridge's area is also serviced by the drainage network, which is operated by Hauraki District Council, as well as a number of pump stations, which are not operated by ourselves.
Councillor Cookson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think we're forgetting why we got to this point in Muggeridge's anyway. We were ready to fund $6 million worth to do the project. And it was all go, all the landowners agreed to the $6 million project. But the council hadn't done its diligence good enough and it failed. That's the issue. This council has got to get a lot better at its due diligence when it's doing projects, because that's where we fail every single time, is the due diligence behind it. And we aren't very good at running these sort of businesses. We've got to get better at it. It wasn't the fault of the community. There is no fault of the community in this, because they agreed to the $6 million budget. And when we went, and you came to them and said, this project will cost $6 million, and they okayed it. But then the project ended up at $9 million 3 months later. That is no failure of the community. That is the failure of regional council, and its inability to process these sort of projects. Thank you. So, but I wholeheartedly agree with what Noel said earlier as well. We've got to plan where these costs lay is also where we've got to decide how big do we let it go to say, no, targeted ratepayers have got to start paying for this before we go any further, so they understand the true cost of where this project's going. So then they're buying into it instead of getting to this point where we've got a debt of 1.8 million. Thank you.
Did you want to respond to that, Greg?
Yeah, and look, I think both this project and Tohei have also been really good examples and learnings around making sure that when we are preparing these projects that we are doing thorough engineers estimates and using the best information at the time to understand what we may be looking at in terms of bringing together project budgets and informing the community. It's always going to be a challenge, because ultimately we do put things out to the open market and we get back what we get back. But I think it's really important that we do also make the best effort to get that accurate information through to the community and base our assumptions off that.
Thanks for that. I think you're getting a real clear indication of the expectation of this council. I think we all are. I think all staff are, that that we want greater oversight of these matters. We want better processes in place, and higher levels of accountability before we get our communities into a place where we're having to mop up a bit of a mess. And I shouldn't laugh, because it will have a significant impact on people in that community. Councillor Mahuta.
Hey, third term on Muggeridge's
I know.
and the never-ending story, but I just wanted to check in that we've got a project control group and that the chairs of catchment are part of that, and if not, would they be? Because again, I'd expect someone in council to be proficiently Muggeridge fluent as we go through this, whatever we commit to. We used to do them as subcommittees of the audit and risk back in the day, but I think it would just give us ease that it's, I've no doubt you're all learned from it, but we need to assure ourselves too, because at the end of the day, that's an angry constituent, unserviced, and we're going to front the conversation. So just asking for a friend. That ain't me. So, but,
Councillor Smith.
Thank you. Just on that point Pip has raised, I'd just like to say thanks to Robbie, because there's a number of issues that have come up in the ICM space, which he has been in contact with me and kept me abreast of it, and we've had good discussion. So thanks very much, and long may that continue. For me, what I'm concerned about, and Robbie just touched on it, and sorry to pick on Mark, but in the last couple of days, we've heard about some transport costs that have gone up 200,000 in 2 days. You know, so the accuracy of the information that is coming before this council and changing over that short space of time. I know we're in a very dynamic, fluid community and cost position in the community at the moment. However, to have that degree of change in 2 days and then 3 months with 3 million, and that probably wasn't at a time of the high inflation may be. So I think Pamela even encapsulated the message that staff hopefully have taken on board. So that's great. And as I said this morning in the workshop, the money's been spent here. It's now where it's apportioned. So yeah, let's focus on dealing with that, because we can talk about what's wrong. We've got the assurances that we need to go forward as a council. So where is this money? And I look back at the original recommendations, etc. And sitting here is one who pays targeted rates. I understand rivers and drainage a little bit. Wouldn't say I'm an expert, but I've been around it for 27 years now. The reality is somebody's got to pay. I think the general rate payer should be the one that doesn't pay the most here. And whether it should be, my concern is the 10% level, and the rest borne by the scheme. And I really feel for the scheme people, because that's a very wide area and a lot of ratepayers who are paying for a very small area. Some would say flip it to the general ratepayer and the cost is less severe. But that's for the whole council to decide. But you know, there's what happens to the canal. I think that's for a future time to discuss, and we can work with that over time with the Karakia District Council. But right now, we need to apportion this money. So whether it's today or whether we defer it, but it will have an impact on the annual plan and the rating. So we have to have a decision of some sort. So I think, Madam Chair, if I can ask that we just focus on who pays, because all the rest is now superfluous.
Agreed. All right, so just in that, did you want to make a comment? You look like you were moving in.
No, I think I could see where you're going. So we probably just maybe need a bit of guidance, Janine, given the interaction of this with the annual plan discussion. And when we go out of this, we'll go back to the annual plan and try and get a resolution where we are today. But where can we get with this today? And what do we need to delay, and how would we incorporate it in? Is that what you're going to ask,
yes.
Madam Chair?
Yeah, so through you, Madam Chair, I think because we had really useful conversation this morning with council, but rather than trying to force that into a conversation today, the recommendation would be to come back to that at the council meeting at the end of this month, so that staff can make sure that we've got the numbers right, got the options right.
And there were further discussions that were going to happen between us and Karakia District Council as well.
Yeah, so I think to come back based on that discussion in terms of if we assume, and there's three options there. If we assume under each of those that the general rate component is funded through the prior year surplus, if we isolate out the costs associated with the canal, and then focus in on what we need to be addressing now under those three options, then we can come back to that decision at the end of February. What that would mean for today, and we've got sort of some draft recommendations for council to consider, is to try and land the other topics from an annual plan perspective and understand where that gets us from a rates position, so that we don't need to relitigate that, but we can bring the total annual plan budget and the approval of that to you at the end of February as well, which can then incorporate your decision around Muggeridge's, and it can sit within that broader annual plan context. That would complete the approval of your annual plan budget process, which then enables you the time that we talked about to have a conversation with some ratepayers in terms of what's proposed, or, what you've approved in essence, before at the end of June we actually adopt the annual plan proper and set the rates. So a bit of a short-term, long-term pathway.
Great. So just looking around the room, are we happy with that approach? Nice. I'm seeing Good nods, fantastic. So in terms of this, of a motion, what are we recording?
So no, effectively no decision
no
in
decision.
relation to Muggeridge's today.
Mhm.
There is another recommendation that when we get there, Dave can bring up, which is for staff to report back at the 23rd of February council meeting on
We have
that.
another. Yeah, yeah, I'm just trying to get it up, I'm just trying to get something up on the screen for us.
Those, the separation of those matters. So we're focusing in on what we need to do now. We've taken out the general rate component, which will, from the 6.1% in the annual plan, have a slightly favourable impact
Okay,
to be confirmed. But
So-
rather than trying to rush that information through today.
okay. So we've got a recommendation that the report be received and that staff report back to council on options for the funding of the Muggeridge's program for inclusion in the final annual plan budget, which we anticipate coming before council at our February 23rd meeting.
Excuse me, Madam Chair,
Okay, yep.
are we including now in removing that general rate portion and approving the payment of that as part of this motion?
So that would come back to you at the end of the month. So not putting you into a corner where you may need to make a decision today.
All right. Do I have a mover of that? Counselor Smith, a second. Counselor Cookson? All those in favor? Anyone opposed?
Nope.
Carried. Perfect. And we do have Counselor Clarkson online now. Oh, Bruce, did you have your hand up? Were you voting? Looked like, is that a vote in favor hand?
That was a yes vote.
Nice, awesome. All right, just to bring you up
Mine's a
to
yes vote.
speed, Bruce, we moved on to the Muggeridge conversation. We didn't finalize that annual plan because we knew that you wanted to be a part of that.
Yeah.
So we moved on to just have that discussion around Muggeridge's because it does impact on the annual plan. And so we will now move back to our previous discussion. Am I okay on a democracy? Yeah, okay, good. Good. All right, I'm now going to turn over to Chris to preface where we're at.
Thank you, Madam Chair. When we finished speaking about the annual plan item a little bit earlier, it was left that we're around about the 6% space. We've had a bit more discussion. We've had some thoughts about the total mobility business case and whether that could either be phased or whether it could just be better delayed into an LTP discussion. The papers, the business case is put forward as a result of the Regional Connections Committee recommending it to council from the previous council, and that would be one option, Madam Chair. And if we were to do that, there would be some saving. The other one, which is what I'm suggesting is, and I really appreciate that the councils have been supportive of the staff and the staff remuneration. I'm conscious that there's a number of councillors who would like the rates to be below 6% in particular. And I think that I'm suggesting, Janine, if we have that staff suggestion of increase, that would also have a saving in there, which might make the rate more favourable to some councillors.
Just in regards to the total mobility consideration, Director Tamura, would you like to make any comments about impact of that decision for you?
Madam Chair, we haven't made the decision. I would be speaking strongly against the suggestion of deferring it.
Well, I'm just wanting to hear from the director what his thoughts are on the impact of it.
Through Madam Chair, I think I
I think I kind of covered it when I spoke to that question previously in relation to this, the option of splitting it. Like I said, the scheme would continue to exist. We would continue to work with territorial authorities to try and organically expand the service with their funding support as it becomes available. We would, I guess we would then revisit it through the long-term plan as part of the wider transition to a regional rating approach, which was, as part of a regional public transport rate, it will be swept into that. So, yeah, that's the overview.
Right. Councillor Dunbar Smith.
Just wanted to clarify that there is currently 4% staff remuneration already built in. This would take it to 5, and you're suggesting 4.5.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate the Chief Executive suggesting the total mobility be deferred. The reality for me is, having been involved in 2010 through 12, this has taken a long time, and I know some TAs are probably not as prepared as others. The reality, though, is put yourself in the position of the person who has need of this service, and what the change to their life means for having independence or the ability to get to appointments at hospitals or wherever they need to go. And I do not have any relative or friend or otherwise who is in need of this service. So I'm not biased in any way through personal experience, but having, through personal experience, observed others who, without support, cannot get. As a JP, I was called to a house, or asked to go to a house because the person could not move. And without disclosing any more detail, I'd never seen such a large person in my life, but that person could not move. And just had they needed to be able to go from one place to another, total mobility would be the only way they could do it. So, yeah, there are people out there who need and who have yet to receive. So putting yourself in their position or their whānau support, having that assistance is probably necessary. So if this can be as extended as widely as possible, I would be 100% in support. Thank you. And doing it now.
Okay, I've lost my mic. So, I've got it back. Fantastic. All right. I've got Councillor Strange, Councillor Nebo, Councillor Nicol, and then Councillor Hughes. Councillor Strange.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just wondering if we could squeeze the screen so we could see the percentage at the bottom. Or scroll it up.
Sorry, to clarify, I have reduced, in terms of Chris's feedback and direction, the staff remuneration provision by half. So the number that you'll see includes that, yeah. 8.
And is that the other removal of total mobility?
Total mobility is still sitting in that number. I think if that comes out, we sit at 5.5.
Yeah, I would be in agreement with Councillor Smith. I really would fight hard to retain total mobility within this annual plan. Yeah, regional consistency is really important for all the reasons that Councillor Smith articulated, and I have previously also articulated. For staff, for efficiency, for so many other reasons that we're aiming for regional consistency in the transport, is for our ratepayers, is for their confusion, to try and lessen that confusion across TAs. The 3 areas, Hauraki, Waitomo and Aotearoa, who aren't in the scheme yet, there's real, areas of high needs within those communities. And yeah, I would, I'm against removing it and deferring it. Thank you.
Councillor Nebo.
Yeah, I want to speak in support of the previous 2. I'm against removing it. This obsession with a 5 instead of a 6, and we're talking about, I don't know, $10 of a $200 worth of fuel that the average family spending on a weekly basis versus providing a service that allows disabled people to have some sort of normal life that will never ever be the same as those that are all of us that are having a really good life, you know. So really against doing that, Madam Chair.
All right, so we've had 3 people speak in favor of keeping total mobility in there. Is there anybody who would like to speak to the contrary?
Madam Chair, yes, I would. I read in the latest Local Government New Zealand magazine where the Waikato Regional Council was being complimented on being a leader in terms of what they've delivered in the community, and we're trying to communicate with other regional councils that they should be bringing themselves up to the current level that the Waikato Regional Council has achieved. So having read that, I thought, well, what are we doing? You know, why are we trying to expand a scheme we're being complimented on? And admittedly, it's not throughout our entire region at the moment. I do understand that. I guess I'm just trying to make the point that, as far as I can see, we're being mentioned in dispatches for all the good reasons. And in this day and age, and in terms of cost control, I would be voting against it. In terms of the Maori partnership, I also would like to see that removed and moved forward to the long-term plan. I believe that, based on the information I had this morning, put that in. There are other groups that are going to be coming along and asking for similar assistance to guide them with the submissions. So I think we'd be opening up a Pandora's box if we proceed with that at this stage. Thank you.
Councillor Downard.
Yeah, I'd like to speak against it. As I said before, I support all these business cases. I mean, who wouldn't, if it improves our community well-being? But the simple fact, as I said before, is that, you know, some of the councillors are talking like $10 and $5. That might not mean much to you, but it means a lot to the demographic of my region. And I'd like to talk also to the Thames Valley region as well, which we have a large population of retired people that their set income is their set income. And then we also have a large population, 28% of Marydom, who are generally on the minimum wage, that also struggle with $5 or $10 increase. And we're only talking about Waikato Regional Council rates. There's also district rates, there's also taxes, there's also inflation. There's many factors that are happening this year. We as councillors have to show due diligence that we're tightening the belt. Now, the staff have come back to us in conjunction with the CE on 3 proposals. It's 6.1 or 6.8 with these 4 business cases, or there's 5.2 if we add all those budget cuttings into it. So I'm not making the Waka go any slower. I'm just saying, let's just get in it to the long-term plan for this next year with so many circumstances happening that we can still provide our current business and then look at a later stage or what we can do. But I'm at 5.2 where the council have come back with those budgets. And unfortunately, I know that means that some of the staff can't do what they'd like to do for the well-being of our community, but that's a hard decision that I have to come to. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councillor Mahuta.
Kia ora. Just of the 4 proposals, 3 regards to vulnerable communities. So I think I just want to put that in a context, whether EV future proofing is the one that we think about, because again, it's a go forward thing. I just put that on the table because again, we're here to speak for those without voice. And just I want to note, Māori should not be othered at this table. We are treaty partners, and I don't want to have to keep repeating that. I respect your view, Councillor Hughes, and those of other members around the table, but I don't have to listen to it. It's microaggression, and it's unacceptable for the rest of this term. Thank you.
Councillor Nicol.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify my view that based on everything I've heard, and you know, I had to explore what other things might be possible, and hence Mark's answer was made my decision then very easy around the fact that I'm in full support of the total mobility scheme, and I've made my views clear on the other ones as well. I thank Chris for coming back with a suggestion that might work for some of us. I believe going into the work that we're doing, that we really do need the best people. We need to retain and value the people we've got. So I'm still leaning towards the original intention, but I understand and appreciate the suggestion, and we'll see where that goes.
Councillor Smith.
Madam Chair, I'd like to look at this item in isolation and move that the line item 16, total mobility, remain as budgeted. So moved.
Second, Madam Chair.
All right, we have a mover and a seconder for ensuring that the total mobility business case is included in the annual plan. All those are you going to call for a division? Do you want each name read out, or can we? All right. Just, I suppose I'll add my thoughts on the total mobility now that we've got the motion on the floor. I am certainly in favor of this in theory. I understand that it addresses a lot of our vulnerable communities, particularly in rural areas, and have always been very supportive of it. I suppose fundamentally, I'm looking at a couple of these items in terms of ongoing projects and ensuring that we've had adequate consultation with our communities, and just listening to Director Tamura in reference to total mobility, that could sit nicely within the conversation around the long-term plan. I am in favor of that item being addressed at our long-term planning process. So that's where I'm positioning on that. But unless there's any other further comment to this particular motion that's on the floor. Yes? Yes, yes. All right.
Chair, are we taking this in part or are we going for the
Well, we've
whole?
got a motion on the floor now for this particular line item in the annual plan.
Okay.
Right. Yes.
Generally, we'd put the motion first and then call the division afterwards, but we can poll the members present from the start if you'd prefer. Do that. Okie dokie. So.
Sorry, what was that?
Yeah, okay.
Is your alphabet right?
Okay, we have a motion on the floor that the total mobility funding be included in the annual plan funding. I'll call your names one at a time. Can you please indicate whether you're for or against the motion? And if I call anyone that's not here, can someone let me know? Councillor Clarkson. Support. Councillor Clarkson has indicated his support via message in the Teams chat. Councillor Cookson. Councillor Downard. Councillor Dunbar-Smith. Councillor Hodge.
Support.
Councillor Hughes. Councillor Kneebone.
Support.
Councillor Ma.
Against.
Councillor Mahuta. Councillor Nicol.
Support.
Councillor Smith. Councillor Strange.
Support.
And Chair Story.
Against.
Okay, we have 7 votes in support, 6 opposed, with 1 member not present. The motion is carried.
Thank you. All right. Back
Madam Chair,
to our, yes?
in the interest of time, I'd like to move, sorry, we've lost a screen. The other, I think the other 3 items sorry, just without the screen. What's the
Do you-
previous screen you had up, Dave?
Do you want my,
the
my
spreadsheet?
budget?
Yeah.
Madam Chair, we did have a resolution that sort of had the things that were in and out. We know where this one is now. I'm just wondering if that might be a way of dealing with it and the whole thing could be dealt with at once.
Okay.
That's making some assumptions of what was in the spreadsheet just after that motion was put.
There may be some issue that someone wants to vote against, but support the rest. And if we take it in block, there's a chance that that person will be feeling that they need to go against for the one rather than all 4. So, or the 3 remote, whatever. So my concern is that if the motion is put, it needs potentially to be isolated.
So I think we'd need to separate out the budget savings, which I think there's probably agreement on.
Well,
maybe.
the problem being that it's lost as a whole.
Yeah, so take the savings, take the other ones.
I don't
individually.
mind doing it individually as long as we can crack on.
We will then just need to come in. So Dave, I think the bulleted recommendations will then need to be individual and we'll have to move the rating impact as a final, just to note.
Happy to be the mover for the morning and find a second, then just go bang, 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 and do the votes on them.
Get a second.
We will take them line by line. Is that the preference?
Yeah, I'm happy to second them all.
I'm moving 5.
Seconding 5.
Can we just clarify what percentage rate increase that would be then if it's at 5%?
6%. That's correct.
Get the spreadsheet back up and just, but he's clear. This motion is.
I'll get the spreadsheet up. Okie dokie.
You're never off the clock.
So
All right, so this has the.
So this has all of the budget savings in there. It has the all of the business cases, the new investment in there. The change in that space is the customer transformation proposed to be funded from prior year surplus. So that's the 228,000 there. It has the staff remuneration included at an additional %.
So that's at 5%.
So that's taking that up to 5%. There is another budget change that's noted there, which is a recommendation from me around the permitted activity monitoring rate, which we can reduce slightly. That sees the total budget position at an increase in total rates revenue from current ratepayers of 6%, resulting in a decrease of 22 cents, a decrease in the general rate of 22 cents per 100,000 of capital value, but an increase in the uniform rates of $2.27 per rating unit. For the capital value, they'll cancel each other out, probably, possibly.
I've put each resolution on its own page, so there's going to be no confusion about where we're at. And I'll just put these on the screen. Are you all done with the magic spreadsheet?
Just,
I will capture the decisions as they're made into the spreadsheet so we can come back to that from a picture as well at the end if we need to.
just check it. Can't. Nah, it's all one.
No.
It is not at this stage possible, I'm afraid. That's correct. What I've done here is I've derived each item from the overall compilation of resolutions. So we'll examine each one, check that they're correct, and then we shall put them.
Can I? Just so I have some clarity in my head, with Muggeridge's, once that gets in there, because I know there's still some things to get through. Once that comes in there, what does that do to that spreadsheet?
So in terms of Muggeridge's, at the moment we have a higher number in terms of the rating impact included in the proposed annual plan. So that will provide a reduction. I don't think it's a material reduction, but it will be less than what we are seeing at the moment. It will only go down.
All right. So we shall take these. All right, we have a mover and a seconder for defer commencement of the Sustainable Homes Eco Retrofit Scheme. Council's role will be reconsidered through the LTP. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carried. Continuation of the Warm Homes Clean Air Scheme beyond 30 June 2023, 60,000 reduction in rates revenue. We have a mover and seconder. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. A decrease in the level of funding for council's hardship remission, noting current uptake with a review of this policy to be considered through the LTP. 100,000 reduction in rates revenue. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Additional funding for iwi Māori partnerships and engagement. 200,000 increase in rates funding.
Rather see this in the long-term plan. All things aside, I'm just asking you as chair, by having articulated your view, is that something that will sit well and that you are comfortable with our treaty partners?
No.
Well, we have already been, what I heard from Neville is that we've already been engaging in this space, and we are currently spending, I believe it was something on the 400,000 mark on this. I would envision that continuing. I would envision that we would direct staff to ensure that the hours, the resources that were involved in this were measured and recorded, so that when we had an LTP conversation, there was a greater level of I suppose, measurement of what has been invested in what areas, so that we can make an informed decision with our community. It was in no way saying that we would not continue as we have engaging with our treaty partners.
So in essence, you're saying that you want us to measure what we're actually doing now in more detail rather than guesstimating. So that's how you will articulate to our treaty partners, is to say that, because I'm concerned with the message.
No, that's not what I'm saying, Councillor Smith, at all. That's not what I was
just like to be
saying.
clear what you're saying, because I'm concerned about the message that will go from this decision if it is not as had been proposed.
Yeah.
I'm just worried about, there's a lot of sensitive people out there.
I understand you. I understand that. And so that was why I was saying that I suppose that I was putting that forward because what I was hearing when we were discussing this item is that there were some counselors who were unsure of how much we were spending in this space. There was some lack of clarity from staff
Yes.
as to what we were spending in this space. And so there was some concern around the table as to, is this investment prudent at this time? My position is that I heard we are engaging, we have resources that we are committing to this at this time. I would like to see us continue to do that, but use the time going into the LTP process to be able to more accurately reflect what we're doing in that space, so that some of the concern that had been expressed around this table could be addressed, and we could come up with a long-term process, a true commitment to how we engage with our treaty partners through our LTP process.
Thank you for that. I heard that message too, but I also thought I heard from the director that we needed more to do that, but that's fine. And look, I think in this case, I'd ask for a division on this one only.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, Madam Chair, just further to this, I just want to seek clarification, please. I'm hearing that you're not intending to support this recommendation. Maybe I'm wrong. Councillor Hughes has made his views with regards to how we engage with our iwi partners abundantly clear. That's fine. He's entitled to do that. I just wanted to understand whether or not you're in support of Councillor Hughes' views or by not supporting this resolution, please.
No, I think I was clear in my response to Councillor Smith that I was reflecting on the collection of views around this table and trying to find a way forward that allowed people, this organization, to continue to engage with our iwi partners, because that is absolutely paramount to this organization, but ensure that we are including that provision for how we engage in our long-term planning process. And in order to do that, it was about using the next annual plan to ensure that we have the feedback, the data, the information necessary that
Next
they're
annual plan, you mean long-term?
in over the next 12 months so that we're prepared going into our LTP process. Councillor Nicol.
Oh, yeah, thank you. I recall a decision I was a part of even, February 2020, which set us back with our EU relationships quite a bit. And I'm thinking that when we have things in front of us, like whether staff remuneration is 0.5 more or less, and we have something in front of us like the 200,000 for this item, that in context of what you were saying about wanting to have a really quality conversation at the long-term plan time, we've been presented something that is innovative and that would allow us, if it happened in 2023, would allow that to truly be a quality conversation, because we're making a little step up, and then we could do another step up when the RMA reforms and others things are clearer, as you know. So my plea would be that on this, and this goes to everyone, that on this item, we don't put ourselves first here. We don't put our, I'm just going to trade it off against the staff remuneration for a minute, that we don't put that first. I would actually argue that we put our partners first on this instance and allow the staff to learn further and improve that relationship. I think we will get better outcomes in the long run. And that's my addition. Thank you.
Councillor Damard.
Turn to Michael.
That might help. I don't like the way that some councillors are insinuating just because we vote against these business cases that we don't agree with them, because we do, and, as I said before, they all merit extra funding put into them. But again, I come back to each one of us have our own personal view. We represent the community that we come from, and then we also represent the wider Waikato Regional Council. And my first point of call for this year, for this annual plan, is to try and be diligent in keeping the rates as low as I can. Now, as I said before, going to that 5.2, the business still runs the same. We've still got that investment in each of those entities, except we just haven't got the extra 4 cases coming into it. So please don't insinuate because we're voting against those cases that we don't care or we don't believe in those extra funding into that. That's all I want to put forward. I'm sticking hard at 5.2 because that's what the council brought with the budget, those 3 options. I didn't come up with that myself. I'd love it to be lower. And, we're going through line by line. I'm getting a bit confused, but at the end of the day, that's where I'm sitting, because that's with all the budget cuts in there. And that's just been at the bare minimum until we, 3 months I've been a councillor. Let's get into a year and into the long-term plans where we can then now make those hard decisions. One of those ones of the cases is the mobility. Now I'm chairman of the transport committee. Now that just makes me look, absolutely stupid to some of you, because you think I'd support that because I'm chairman of it. I haven't even had my first committee yet. We've got our first meeting tomorrow. But then it still comes down to the rates that I believe that are obtainable to the most. And again, I talk back, you talk about $10 or $20, Councillor Kneebone and Councillor Strange. That's a lot of money to a lot of my contingencies in the whole region. Thank you.
Councillor Marr.
Yeah, again, just echoing those thoughts of Mike, but also, this was presented to us in a report, and it purely states here, as the funding for this is unknown, it is assumed that you would need at least as much as the council currently spends, which is unknown. And it should also be noted that there's a high degree of uncertainty in the relation to the amount the council, currently spends on iwi engagement. I don't have the information for me to go forward and work out that if this is a good decision budgetly to make. So I'll be voting against it.
Councillor Hodge.
Hello. So, as you know, I'm for this. What I'm against is the bus depot being built in Kiki and the EV. So you might want to know why. I live here in Kiki. I can't see where on earth they're going to put this. The council, WR's Waipa hasn't spoken to the community yet. And so I'm not going to tautoko some money going into something that we as constituent members in Waipa are not quite sure about. So if I have to take anything out of all of this, at this time, I would prefer to move that one, that bus depot of Kiki and the EV, to the long-term plan and leave this one there.
Kataraina, that's a rates neutral one. So that one wouldn't make any difference.
It's still got dollars connected to it, but I'm for this, okay?
Councillor Clarkson.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak in support of the Māori engagement funding. I really believe that the comments made by Tipper in particular around the flow back are critical here. We're talking not just about a cost, but an investment. I view this as investment because I believe that the engagement processes can be improved. And I'm also confident that through appropriate engagement processes and better relations, that processes will occur more smoothly and efficiently, thereby saving funding. And in addition to that, will increase opportunities for flow back to our region. There are definitely many funding opportunities out there of the style that Neville was talking about, where having appropriate Māori engagement would make us way more likely to be successful in getting some of that funding back into our region. So I'm voting for it because I believe it's an investment rather than just a straight cost. Thank you.
Councillor Strange.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I fully support this this line item. As previous speakers in support have said, you know, what message does it send if we don't continually invest in this? Yeah. And what message does it send, you know, whatever we do? We have to make sure that we value our partners and, yeah, really send a strong message that they are valued. So I'm in support.
Can I just
Councillor
remind
Michael?
people about the fact that staff are applying for central government funding on this matter, so that it could very well be that we sit here in a year's time and the money we're currently voting for might have been paid by central government.
Of course, in a year's time, we'll be talking about the LTP.
Maybe.
Councillor Smith.
Can I just support what Bruce just said a moment ago about an investment? In a former life, I spent a week immersed up at the college at Hopoho with Waikato Tainui in developing the blueprint program, which was seeking the community's aspirations of the Waikato district, and particularly that week was spent engaging with iwi and hapu. And that investment, you know, it was a lot of time, a lot of money, but what came out of it and the relationships that were built and the trust that was built up, and understanding of each other's positions and what was deliverable was immense and way beyond a dollar figure. So it's about relationships, and it's up the word partnerships there, but it's also about relationships for me. And Bruce has absolutely hit the nail on the head when he says that it's an investment. And that's how we should be looking at this. Sure, we haven't got it quantified, and Neville, I was disappointed to hear that. And absolutely would like to see the cost centre and how that's brought forward. We should all know what the cost of our business and doing business with any person or partner. So that's why I'm supporting this. Thank you.
Kia ora.
Councillor Mahuta.
Thank you through the chair. Just want to assure councillors that what we currently do for in the space of working with mana whenua, tangata whenua and Māori has already been through an LTP. I can produce it for if you want. It predates most of my colleagues here. Probably only me and Stu are on that council. So we're living out that LTP. That's the stuff we're already doing. That was initiative of the last council. Appreciate we're in the same place 3 years ago. All my colleagues were new. They didn't know, I guess, what was the bacon and what was the eggs in terms of council business. Well, that's what I like to call it, and I like bacon. But anyway, you know, because we're weighing up a whole lot of variables here, and I hear the goodwill to work with iwi. I think we have to trust, as we do with the rest of the ELT, that Neville and his team are the experts in this. They're putting up a recommendation. Mine is I wouldn't know how to change the soundbite because it's been so strongly held through people's campaigns that we are anti-co-governance. So again, us doing something that's moving away from, or even asking for a reduced number would be better than saying no. I'm just trying to, again, give you an opportunity with my community who are already saying, well, can we partner with this council? Yeah. Reasons for doing it, again, I'll give you 3. Hamilton is requiring a whole lot of investment from Waikato Tainui. Te Kuiti wool from Ngāti Maniapoto. The West Coast harbours will be saved by iwi, not this council. The river will be cleaned by iwi, not this council. So if that doesn't give you enough reason to work with us, I can't keep convincing you. Likewise, any new money in the Waihome Piako is going to Hauraki. And we want to work with that money and with that great intention. So encourage us, just, you know, brave it up, ask for a reduced number, but no number. It sends the wrong message to my community, and I won't be there to soundbite for you. Thank you.
And I would like to pick up on that, Councillor Mahuta, because you're right. There has been damage, considerable damage done between our relationship with iwi Māori and this council in a number of instances. And I suppose that I really want to stress that I don't want anybody to interpret the position I have articulated on this item to be interpreted as any reticence to engage with our treaty partners. That's not what this is. For me, that's not what I'm articulating. And I appreciate how it will be viewed. And that's the challenge here, isn't it? Is that we vote yes and no on things when there is all sorts of context that doesn't necessarily get reported in the motion that gets recorded or in media. And that's the challenge that's before us. I suppose that I'm reflecting on, well, the Muggeridge's conversation we had and the Tauhei conversation we had, this desire from this council for good planning, for good budgeting, for good accountability. And with this particular business case, despite the validity of the intention and the objectives of it, and I will get to that. I will get to that. I guess my issue was the lack of clarity, the ambiguity, and as Councillor Marr has reiterated out of the report. So my concern is that on one hand, we send a message that says, no, we want surety. And then on another hand, we say, oh, it's all right because the intention is good enough. And I find myself in a real stuck place because I don't want to send mixed messages about what we do. I do, however, agree with you about the message we send to our partners. And so I will be supporting this.
Thank you,
Councillor
Madam
Smith.
Chair. You may have alleviated the question that I've got, and that was, I want this to succeed, and whether it was a compromise of a slightly smaller number, but you've indicated you'll be supporting it. So I'm not sure what that makes the room numbers in the room, but I would like the ability, if this fails on the motion, whether there's a need or whether I indicate an indicative.
I think we're fine, Councillor Smith.
If you
with
think
where-
we're fine on
with-
this number,
with
otherwise
where
I'd
this says.
suggest an
Because
amendment.
it wasn't about the number for me. It's not
Okay,
about the
that-
number for me. It is
okay.
about the process and about when we're entering into long-term projects, long-term engagements, which this is, that we need to utilize the planning processes that we have before us to do it in a sound manner so that our communities are involved in that. And that's why I originally stated that I would like to see this in the LTP process. I'm not going to go to a casting vote on this situation. I'd really like to not be there.
Yeah.
Because I support the objective in terms of engagement with our iwi partners, and I don't want any question about that.
So,
But
Madam
the
Chairman,
process for me.
I've articulated what I want to do, but I go back to my thoughts. Yeah, 45 years ago, as a 20-year-old cop, I would have just, none of this. But Maori do things differently. And to put our European eyes over this process, we don't know how much time. There's a lot of wriggle room and space that you've got. It's elastic for me. It's not hard and fast. So I'm pleased with your indication, and hopefully it is supported. Thank you.
Councillor Dunbar Smith.
Yes, I just wondered, picking up on what Tipper was saying, whether we could propose a alternative if this doesn't pass of 100,000, given that there is still a lot of uncertainty in this document about what we actually are doing and what our engagement is. That there's been a lack of clarity that was pointed out in that document. So that's a suggestion, proposal.
And then, if this fails at 200,000, is there an ability to look at an alternate view of a lesser figure? I don't want to have that kind of just with where's the democracy. So, in a lot of cases, if you can't put up. I could put up an amendment now, as I was alluding to earlier, and change the figure. I don't want to do that because I'm hoping that it goes through at 200. But if it gets lost, is there an ability to come back with another figure on the same topic? Understanding orders.
You could possibly do a foreshadowed motion of 100,000. It would not qualify as a direct negative because you're proposing a different amount of funding. So that would work. So if this motion was to fail, then we would put the foreshadowed motion and see how that goes. And if that was to fail, then there would be no outcome at that point.
Ben has the floor on the subject, although I raised it earlier, so one of us could foreshadow that and the other second it, but I really don't want to do that on the hope that it's 200, so a bob each way perhaps.
I'm still concerned with the 6%. I would like to see less than 6%, and if we take 100,000 off, we are under that 6%.
So, okay, we got to.
Is that what the magic spreadsheet looks like?
No, bring it under 6.
No.
Still sits at 6 to 1 decimal place.
I believe we've got Molly that has her hand up online.
Oh.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kia ora, councillors. I just thought I'd raise my hand and suggest a alternative process approach that might help get to an outcome. You could consider putting this motion in 2 parts. So your first part would be to approve additional funding for iwi partnerships and engagement, full stop. Vote on that. If it goes through, your next step would be to vote on the amount. You'd start at 200 because that's on the table, it's been moved and seconded, and then if it was lost, you would go to the next, I guess, suggestion, which would be a reduced amount.
Madam Chair, I'm happy to let it lie on the table as it is without moving that varied process. So let's have a crack at what's up there, please.
All right. We'll put it. Yeah, all right. Thanks.
Okie dokie. The motion on the table is that additional funding for iwi Māori partnerships and engagement, which is $200,000 increase in rates funding, be approved. A division has been called. I'll call your names and can you please indicate whether you support or oppose the motion? As before, I'll do it alphabetically as requested and we'll take it from there. Councillor Clarkson. Councillor Clarkson has indicated his support in the chat. Councillor Cookson. Councillor Downard. Councillor Dunbar-Smith. Councillor Graff.
Oppose.
Councillor Hodge. Come back to Councillor Hodge.
Yep,
Councillor
I
Hughes?
agree. I agree
Okay.
to the resolution on.
Oh, Councillor Hughes. Councillor Kneebone.
Support.
Councillor Marr.
Abstain.
Councillor Mahuta. Councillor Nicol. Councillor Smith. Councillor Story.
Support.
Councillor Strange.
Support.
We have 8 votes in support, 3 opposed and 3 abstentions. The motion is carried.
All right, next one. What do we have next? Development of depot and EV charging facilities with no rate revenue impact. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Funding for the customer transformation program at 228,000 increase.
Sorry, that's what I'd put in there. So my question for Janine, does this need to be in here if it's going to be funded from prior year surplus? It's not an annual plan matter per se, is it?
It could be, or it could come back for approval through a subsequent process. Yeah, in terms of accessing those prior year surplus funds anyway. So
Can we not do that today?
yes, yeah, you can. Yep. So I think it's so you can do this, noting with the resolution as it stands, there is no rating impact. It enables the expenditure to come into the annual plan, but we'll lean into that prior year surplus reserve to fund it.
So, so what is our wording? Are we leaving the yellow in there? Is that?
I think to clarify that the value of the business case was 228 and the proposal is that it's funded through prior year surplus, just so we've got that captured as a record.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
increase.
we can.
Yeah.
200.
Funded.
Yeah, funded. Yeah.
Rating impact. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Sorry? Yeah, we're getting close. We're getting close. Hang in there.
I think the wording of this one, the amount that's been put back in the resolution, was that amount?
So yes, so the I think where the discussion had landed, but obviously still open to discussion, was the full 566,000.
All right, so have we got our wording right? Increase in funding in relation to staff remuneration, 566,000 increase in rates funding? Yeah, we're right with that. All those in favor? Oh, sorry, did you want to?
I was just going to ask, if it doesn't pass, where does it sit? If this motion fails, is it gone completely?
Is that a
That would be
foreshadowed
back at the end or at the
at
start.
4%?
Which was
4%.
4%. Can yeah. So I'm just trying to test the room. I'm just testing the room, whether or not this is gonna get there. Yeah. Because I'd rather us get somewhere. So. You're against? Yeah. Huh? You're opposed? I'm just counting. Can, what about 4.5? No, I'm just trying to get us something that's not so fraught.
So can I ask a question of the Chief Executive, please? So we've heard about the impact of government recruiting at the moment, poaching from local government, from industry, likes of CKL and all those others in the business and planning. You got engineers, as someone, I think Greg spoke of this morning. So across the board, our business is impacted by government inflationary driven recruiting. So of real concern to me is the ability of the regional council to do its business going forward. To indicate that we're only looking at 4% or 5.5 or 5%, overall, it's a chunk of money, but is it sufficient to enable you to retain the people that you need or recruit the people that you need to keep the business going? Because that's one of the complaints about local government, is it takes too long to get answers from local government. So by just saying we're going down and we're going for a Dutch auction here and trying to get to the lowest common denominator, but is it going to enable you to do the business? That's what my real question is.
And I'm just noting, the strategic pay, latest data had the increases at about 4%, right?
That was the labour cost index. for
Just to be
December.
clear, strategic pay haven't given us, that doesn't come out until late March, but they have indicated that it is likely to be around the 5 to 7%. The difficulty is it's role specific. Some roles, it's all different. And so I think we've done, I'll repeat what I said earlier, I think we've done a good job in retaining some of our good staff. Yes, we have lost some. The difficulty is recruiting from the market is where you've got to compete with everybody else. And that's where we need to try and be competitive. We've put in 4% because we think that's the bottom line of what we would need. What I've done is say, if we can get more than that, we can be more competitive than we would be. Stu, I can only look to you for advice. You've talked to strategic pay. You've talked with other councils, what they're doing.
Yeah, I guess I was keen to hear, right across the country what was happening. And there's a range of pay increases across all of the different councils. The baseline was kind of 4% across all of them. There was one maybe that was at 3%. All of the rest of them were going to push for at least 5%, and some of them were looking at 7 and 8. So quite significant. Obviously, everybody has their own situations and what they're doing, and but the reality is they're all trying hard because they realise what's going on there out in the market. And like I said, Strategic Pay have advised that last year the private sector was also paying an additional 3% on what public sector were paying. So while the salaries are less than, they're also getting bigger increases as we go. And it's an employees market out there right now. So people are mobile and able to get jobs and ask what they want for now. I don't know how long that'll last, but it's certainly the case, and we don't want to lose good staff.
4 or 5% or somewhere in between, that decision today impacts the available money in 18 months' time when the year that we're talking about ends. So we're looking at a figure that's going to last for 18 months.
Just question,
Oh, sorry, we've got a order. We've got Councillor Marr, and then I'll come to you.
Yeah, I'd just like to point out that, we've just voted on something that we were concerned about the message it sends, and that's my interest in seeing this 5 go down to 4, possibly maybe 4.5. But just the message it does send to the people out there that aren't getting pay rises, are being affected what we're doing in this room. So that was just a point I'd like to make.
just wanted to check on, if it is half that amount, what does that impact on the rates?
I think that took us down to
5.66,
5.8.
Comes down to
So if it-
5.8% instead of 6%.
So if it's 4.5, is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
If it's
4.5.
4.5, what, given all the decisions that have come before, where are we at on your spreadsheet?
5.8. If the provision for staff remuneration is at 4.5%.
5.8. And if it is at 5, it's
6.
It's 6. 4.5. Can we live with 4.5? So for the mover and the seconder, are they happy to change that number to whatever the 4.5 is
So that
equivalent
number
to?
would be 283,000.
It was all part of my plan. Sorry, what was it again?
283,000.
283.
Dave's grabbed that.
All right. All those in favor? Yes?
Opposed here.
Budgeted. So
Can we have a-
actually, are we actually talking about 4.5%, or is it the 4% included in the LTP already? So this is only additional above the LT. Okay, I can live with that. Thank you.
Can we have a
All right.
division, please?
Sure. All right. I'm gonna do it on voices first, and then, so all those in favor? Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
Aye.
So opposed, we have Clyde and, sorry, we'll do the,
The resolution is on screen to increase in funding in relation to staff remuneration, which is $283,000 increase in rates funding. Again, I'll call it alphabetically, and can you please indicate whether you support, oppose, or abstain? Councillor Clarkson? Councillor Clarkson supports by way of Teams message. Councillor Cookson? Councillor Downard?
Could you tell us, Dave, what the results are as you go, because we can't hear online?
oh, you need to turn your mics on when you,
Okay, so far we've had Councillor Clarkson supports, Councillor Cookson opposes, Councillor Downard opposes, Councillor Dunbar-Smith support, Councillor Graff,
Oppose?
Councillor Hodge,
Support.
Councillor Hughes,
Oppose?
Councillor Kneebone,
Support.
Councillor Marr,
Oppose.
Councillor Mahuta, Councillor Nicol, Councillor Smith, Councillor Story,
support.
Councillor Strange,
Support.
we have 9 in support, 5 opposed. The motion is carried.
All right. Where, is that it? Is that the last, the line? Are we? Oh, is there one more? That the report is received that we don't need to have two, do we?
I don't think we do.
Because
So
nothing-
we've done it. We've done it. And resolution number 3, I think, in light, so that can lie on the table. That's what we will come back to on the 23rd of February, following the inclusion of the Muggeridge's impact.
All right, so did we receive the report already earlier? No, we didn't. Okay, all
We've got
those,
straight into this.
all those. Mhm.
Why can't we have what's up there?
Yeah.
And with the extra subject to confirmation after the Muggeridge decision or whatever.
Yeah, so that was the way that I had
Because I
that had it structured.
rather than we've litigated it. It's there.
So
It's it's confirmed subject to one piece of information being determined.
All right, so what's the change to the motion?
It is, council confirms council confirms the proposed, or it confirms the annual plan budget.
Yep.
Noting an estimated increase in rates revenue from current ratepayers of 5.8%, subject to a decision regarding the funding of the Muggeridge's pump thingy. I'm out of words for the day.
Then all we've got is one thing to determine.
Yeah, which that's fantastic outcome.
Yes, move and second that.
You happy to move? Happy to second? All those in favor? Oh, we're gonna have division? All right.
Point of order, because if this is lost, we've still got the decisions are already on the table getting to 5.8. So I would be looking for guidance from democracy is whether this whether any proposal can go to a division, but the consequences of this being lost means a relitigation, and it is possibly, the ability to have a division and have this overturned is or
Well, you
lost.
can call a division on anything.
Yeah, I appreciate,
regardless
but
of
the impact of this being lost impacts on the decisions already made,
Understand,
which are
yeah.
positive decisions. And
Yeah.
so having got to a position of council on those matters.
That's only a matter if it's lost. So,
Okay.
and we've had a division called, and that's just so people can have names
I just
recorded,
want
and
you to
that's
be
all
aware
good.
of the consequences.
I'm aware. I'm
Thank
well
you.
aware. Thank
Well,
you.
Actually, I was meaning the we rather than you particularly.
Thank you. All right, call the names. It's 5 o'clock.
Okay, so what we're doing here is we're receiving the report and we're confirming the budget of 5.8% subject to the Muggeridge's pump station debt repayment. I'll call your names. Can you please indicate whether you support or oppose? Councillor Clarkson.
Support.
Support. Councillor Cookson. Councillor Downard. Councillor Dunbar-Smith. Councillor Graff.
Oppose.
Councillor Hodge.
Support.
Councillor Hughes. Councillor Kneebone. Councillor Hughes and Councillor Kneebone didn't have their mics on, couldn't, and they both support. Councillor Ma. Support. Councillor Mahuta. Councillor Mahuta supports the motion. Councillor Nicol.
Support.
Councillor Smith.
Support.
Councillor Story.
Support.
Councillor Strange.
Support.
All right.
So 12 support, 2 against, the motion is carried.
Thank you. Well done, everybody. It's a long day.
Goodbye.
We got there. I appreciate that. Oh, hang on, Katarina, if you can. We'll close the meeting, but then there is a item that the chief executive would like to brief counselors on. So we
Okay.
will close with our Karakia.
Okay.
And I'm happy to lead that. Unahia, unahia, unahia mai te uru tapanui, kia wātia, kia mama, kia nākau, te tanana, te hinenaro, e te ara takatu, koe rā e rongo, e whakaereria, aki a ranga, e tina, tina, ui mai, ui e, tai ki e.
Thank you, and we'll declare the meeting closed at 5:03.
Thank you, Councillor.